Hey everyone, and welcome to the next lesson in the sequence for Theme 2 GCSE Geography. What we're going to be looking at today is examples of brownfield redevelopment, and we're going to use a brownfield redevelopment project called BedZ, and we're going to evaluate whether it is sustainable or not, and then we're going to attempt one of the highest marking questions on the paper, which is usually a to what extent question. It's usually worth 8 with an additional 3 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So it's going to be a mixture of content, knowledge, understanding, and then some exam past paper practice. So pause the video here a minute, go ahead and write down today's title then please, and we'll get going. Okay, so first off then, what is and where is BedZ and what do we mean by sustainable urban development? Sustainability, as you know, is a massive concept in geography. It comes up all the time. It's about solving an issue permanently without causing damage to people, the environment, or the economy. So in the case of urban development in cities and built up areas, sustainable urban development means creating a city that meets the needs of its population now and into the future without causing any damage to people or the environment. In this case, we're talking about demand for housing. We need hundreds of thousands and millions of new homes over the next few years across Britain due to population increase, mostly due to immigration, but also due to a slightly higher birth rate than death rate. Those houses are going to have to go somewhere so that people can live in them. We need to meet the needs of our population now and continue to have enough houses into the future, but we need to build those houses in a way that don't cause damage to the environment or to the people already living in the area of the city that we're looking at building in. So what you need to do quickly is pause this video and go ahead and write down the definition of sustainable urban development, please. Okay, so first off, what is and where is BedZ? This is BedZ. Now, normally what we get at this stage is that it reminds you of the Teletubbies, and to some extent, yes, it does. What we've got here, the idea with BedZ is that it is a carbon neutral development. What that means is all the energy and materials that's taken to create it, that is offset by the renewable energies, the recycled material. It doesn't use any more carbon dioxide or non-recyclable materials in the future. So what we've got here is little wind turbines and stuff like that on the top so that we can generate renewable electricity. We've got solar panels here as well for renewable electricity. We've got rooftop allotments and gardens so people can grow their own food to cut down on food miles. And we've got special glass called solar passive gain. So the idea here is that as solar radiation passes through the window, the panes of the window, the air in between the panes of glass gets heated and it acts as an insulator. So the idea is that it keeps you warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer so that you don't have to put your central heating on so much in the winter, and that's going to save energy. It's going to save burning gas usually, or oil. That's normally what central heating runs on, and of course when you burn gas and oil you get carbon dioxide being emitted. So the solar passive gain glass will mean less central heating in the winter. Solar panels and wind turbines mean more renewable electricity so that the electricity being used in the development isn't coming from the national grid. Now the national grid is our network of pylons and wires and etc. that carry the electricity across the UK, usually coming from power stations that run on fossil fuels, coal or oil. So most of the electricity that comes through the national grid is from non-renewable sources. That's going to mean more carbon dioxide being released because fossil fuels are being burnt in power stations to make that electricity. So if we can take less electricity from the national grid, that means less fossil fuels burnt, making this development more carbon neutral because it's using renewable energy to create its electricity. Don't be fooled, renewable electricity is not free. Okay, it is slightly cheaper, but it is not free from an economic point of view. So this is what BedZ looks like, and this is where BedZ is located. So put a subheading, where is BedZ and what does it stand for? You've got this map in your handout, so if you're able to print it out and cut it and stick it down, then do so. And what we can see here is the southeast area of England. We've got London there, the capital city, and then just outside to the southwest of London we've got an area called Sutton, and BedZ is right there. Okay? It's within commuting distance of really good jobs in this area, which makes it a very desirable area to live in. And BedZ stands for Beddington Zero Energy Development. So the idea is that all the energy, like I said, that is taken to make it, it kind of cancels it out through renewable energy production and recycled materials and things like that in the long term. It's on the site of an old sewage works. Doesn't get more brownfield site than that. So we're recycling the land here. We're not destroying any habitats to build this development in an area of Hackbridge in London. So it's actually in the London borough of Sutton, about 2 miles east of the town of Sutton itself. Okay, so put this subheading, stick this map down, and put these 2 bullet points down, please. Okay, so let's get into it. What is it and why was it needed? So BedZ stands for Bedding to Zero Energy Development. It was needed because of the demand for housing. 3 million new homes needed by 2020. So we're talking by this year. BedZ opened in 2002 on the 8th of June, and it consists of 82 homes, 1,500 square metres of office space. So we're looking at jobs being created as well, which is going to mean more income for people in the area, and it's going to boost the economy. A healthy living centre, a cafe and a childcare facility. The idea is that the development uses only renewable energy resources, making it carbon neutral, so no carbon dioxide is produced in the long run. What I'd like you to do is put this subheading and just, I'd say you don't need to rewrite this top bullet point because we've said in the previous subheading what BedZ stands for. Just make a couple of little notes about why it was needed, because we need more houses, what it's made up of, and that it's carbon neutral. So just make a couple of quick notes there about the basics of BedZ. Okay, so what are the houses like in BedZ? Now you've got this image in your handout. There's an awful lot of information around here. Okay, I'm going to walk you through each one. What I would suggest is you just pick a couple. All right, maybe 4 of these, and annotate your image with that information. So we've got that it's made from renewable or recycled materials from sustainable forests. So what this means is that for all the trees they cut down, they plant more. It's called afforestation. The 82 homes are heated with specialist glass, like we talked about. It's called solar passive gain. The buildings are very well insulated, so that means that they don't get cold in the winter, which means that you don't have to put your central heating on as much, which means you're not burning fossil fuels to keep your home warm. Rooftop rainwater collection through something called a living machine. So it collects rainwater and uses that water to flush toilets and things like that. Water that doesn't have to necessarily be of drinkable quality. And what that means is that it's a water recycling facility. You're not taking water from local resources. And it means that it's 58% lower than local average water consumption. So it's going to save you energy on your water bill too. Solar roof panels, so we've talked about renewable energy already. So it's not coming from the national grid, because the national grid electricity usually has come from power stations that burn fossil fuels. Really high recycling rates on site. And sustainable food choices. They grow a lot of their own food on site in their own allotments, and that means that if you're growing it yourself on site, you're not buying it from a supermarket, because the food in the supermarket normally has been driven for miles or flown in from other countries. We call that food miles, and that means more air pollution. Community centre and creche. So you can leave your children in the on-site childcare facility. Not only does that mean a stronger community, because it's like a meeting place for everyone, but if your child is being looked after on site at slightly reduced cost childcare, it means both parents can go out to work. Or if you're a single parent family, you can get out to work. That's going to increase your disposable income and improve your standard of living. Carpooling is encouraged. This is in the commuter belt of London. So people can live here and commute to the high-paid jobs in the CBD. That's what most of the people here will be doing. So you're all going to almost the same place for work. You might as well all get in a car and share the journey. That's going to cut your petrol costs in quarter, and it means that lower annual mileage as well, reduced by about 64% compared to the national average. So it's going to save you money, and it's better for the environment, because instead of 4 single cars producing 4 lots of air pollution, you've just got the 1 car taking 4 people in and out. Significantly lower use of energy for heating and electricity, because you've got the solar passive gain. You've got the really well insulated homes, so you don't use as much energy. So put a subheading, what are the houses like in BedZ? Go ahead and summarise a few of these, maybe 3 or 4 around your image, just to get you a feel of how the development is trying to make itself carbon neutral. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to take the information from this slide, and we're going to write 3 mini paragraphs, literally like a few sentences. One that summarises how this development is socially sustainable, so how it's sustainable for people. One that summarises how this development is environmentally sustainable, and one that summarises how this development is economically sustainable. Okay? So, I'd like you to copy and complete these sentences. How does this development help people? How does it help make money for the economy or provide jobs so people can make more money? And how does it help the environment? Refer to the previous slide to help you. Just a couple of sentences for each is fine. So pause the video here and give that a go. Okay, so the sorts of things that I would have been expecting, perhaps, you might have chosen different ones, but here's some examples. It's socially sustainable because of the on-site community centre. Now that encourages everyone within the development to mix and get to know each other, and that creates a stronger sense of community, which is going to improve people's quality of life, and it's going to bring down crime rates in the area as well, because everyone knows each other. The socially sustainable one, you could have said anything to do with the allotments as well. That could be like a meeting place for people. You might have said about the creche being a meeting place for people and it helping out families. There's lots of socially sustainable elements you could have gone for. From an economic point of view, the solar passive gain and high levels of insulation will keep apartments warmer, so you don't need to put your central heating on as much, which is going to save you money on your energy bills. And if you're saving money on your bills, you've got more spare cash, more disposable income to spend on nice things. So your standard of living will increase. You could have said anything here about saving money on petrol. You could have said anything about the on-site offices creating jobs. There's all kinds of options there. You could have even said about the creche, meaning that both parents can go out to work or single parents can go out to work, and that's going to mean more income for the family. Environmentally sustainable, lots of options here. You could have talked about the solar panels, so less energy is taken from the national grid, reducing fossil fuel burning, less air pollution, reducing climate change. You could have mentioned about the recycled materials, anything like that. So if you were a little bit stuck, look at what I've written and either add to or change what you've got to make sure that you're elaborating fully to explain how this development benefits people, the environment, and jobs in the economy. So on the surface of things, it looks like this development everything's hunky-dory. It's set out to do exactly what it intended. Plenty of new homes, plenty of new office space to create jobs. So let's look at how it has actually impacted on different groups of people. So a commuter. You want to be able to work at the high-powered, high-paid jobs in the CBD, but perhaps you don't want to live right in the CBD. This development is within the commuter belt. So it's ideal for you. You can live just out of the CBD, slightly nicer quality of life, and commute in and out. And the carpooling program is ideal for you because it cuts your petrol costs down. For working families, the on-site creche is ideal. It means both of you can go out to work, knowing that your child is safely cared for on-site. And the creche is probably subsidised. Now, if something is subsidised, that means that the government or the local council is paying partly towards it. Childcare is extortionately expensive. If you've got younger siblings in childcare, speak to your parents. For a couple of children in full-time childcare, you're talking over £1,000 a month to put two young children in full-time childcare. It's insane. So if you've got subsidised childcare on site, this means you can both go out to work, knowing your child is safe. The childcare would be slightly cheaper. And of course, you've then got both parents bringing income into the family. Or if you're a single parent family, you can go out to work and earn more money to support your children. Groups on low income. So this might be somebody fresh out of university looking for one of the jobs in the city. It could be a single parent family. It might be just someone on a lower income job, and you're looking to buy an apartment in the commuter belt of London. There is no way that you would be able to afford a property in the commuter belt of London under normal circumstances. You're looking £500,000 plus just for like small flats in some instances. When new developments like this put in their planning permission, they have to allocate a certain proportion of the homes to be, in inverted commas, affordable houses. Okay? So that means that they are affordable to the lower income band of people in the community. And this is a policy set out with good intention to make sure that people aren't getting priced out of the market in the area they've grown up in, that opportunity is fair for all to live in all areas. So the idea with BedZ is some of the apartments would have been allocated as affordable housing, which means that groups on low income have fair opportunity to live within the commuter belt of London, and then hopefully access those better jobs and maybe improve their standard of living as their income increases. So, Here's some ideas on what you could write. You don't have to write down exactly what I've written. You could summarise it further, or you could go for slightly different points of view. But what I'd like you to do is put a subheading, effects on different groups of people, cut and stick these images. If you don't have the images, you're not able to print them out, just put the subheadings, and make some notes about how this development has impacted different groups of people. And so far, it still seems very positive. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper though and see if it's really everything it's cracked up to be. There have been a few significant failures. For example, the biomass wood chip boiler. So what they were trying to do is a lot of the organic waste from the site, if you treat it in a certain way, you can actually use it to heat up the water for the development. So people's hot water would be heated using organic material in a biomass wood chip boiler. That means no fossil fuels being burnt, no air pollution. Great. But it kept failing, and people had to switch to their gas boilers, so you're getting air pollution anyway. That water recycling facility that was supposed to collect rainwater for people to flush their toilets and water their gardens turned out to be very expensive to run. And in the end you had to take water from local supplies anyway. So you're putting hundreds of new people into an area, but not actually any extra water pipes or any extra water. They're going to be taking water from the existing resources. The passive solar gain glass that everyone was going on about wasn't as efficient as everyone thought. Homes were still too cold in the winter. People were having to put their central heating on, which burned fossil fuels. And then in the summer, the apartments got way too hot. So didn't really pan out as they'd hoped. 60% of the original planned allotments didn't get built. So like I was saying about reducing food miles, they'd hoped to build more allotments over the road to encourage people to grow more of their own produce. But it didn't come to fruition. So that meant that less food was being produced on site, more was being bought from supermarkets, which added to food miles. So despite the best efforts, now we're going to look at ecological footprint later on. It's measured in planets, okay? Your ecological footprint is the area of land that for the duration of your life it takes to maintain you. So the area of land it would have taken to grow all the crops you've eaten, to rear all the animals you've eaten, to produce the cotton for the clothes that you've worn, to take the water from an area that you've drunk and washed in, or whatever. Basically, your impact on the environment throughout your life, represented as an area, as like a size, a proportion of the planet that you needed. So it worked out, they'd hoped that it would be one ecological footprint per resident. It ended up at 1.7 planets instead of just one planet. However, although it's 0.7 over the one planet they'd hoped for, it's still less than the UK average of 3 planets. So it's still almost half the UK average. So successful to some extent, just not as successful as they'd hoped. Pause the recording here for a moment and just make a note of a few of these, because the past paper question I'm about to give you, you're going to need to consider some of the downsides as well. So a few is 3. So write down 2 or 3 of these, summarise them further if you're able to, it's up to you. Okay, so let's take a look at a past paper question. BedZ is an excellent example of sustainable brownfield site redevelopment. That's your statement. To what extent do you agree? Justify your answer. And it's an 8 marker. Now, it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. You could say, I do not think it's a good example of sustainable brownfield redevelopment. Or you could say, I do agree. I think it's really sustainable. You could go either way. The secret is here. Justify. Explain why. And every single point you make must be elaborated. So let's break it down. This is a to what extent question. So your first sentence must be, well, there should be a space there. I strongly agree or I strongly disagree. Don't sit on the fence. You have to go one side or the other. You need 2 or 3 well elaborated reasons that back up why you agree or why you disagree. And then you need 1 or 2 well elaborated points that acknowledge the opposite. So if you've just written 3 reasons why you agree it is an excellent example of sustainable development, then you're going to say, however, I do realise that there were some problems that meant it wasn't sustainable. Or if you've gone for I strongly disagree, I don't think it's sustainable, you're then going to have to give 1 or 2 reasons that say, however, I do realise in some ways it was sustainable because. Okay? And then a little conclusion that successfully draws together and reinforces your point of view. It's a sustainability question, so it would be pretty smart to address how it affects people, how it affects jobs in the economy, and how it affects the environment. Those are kind of the 3 aspects of sustainability. Elaborate and use key terms. And there would be an extra 3 marks on an 8 marker for spelling, punctuation and grammar. Full stops, higher level punctuation, brackets, semicolons, colons, capital letters for place names, good connectives, paragraphing, etc. Okay? So, write down the question. Okay, and then I've given you a little bit of a writing frame to help you with structuring your answer. So I'll take it back a minute for you to write down the question. You're welcome to put down these tips as well if you like, for future reference. So pause the video here a minute, definitely get down the question, but you're welcome to write these down as well if you like. And then you can use this writing frame to get you going. So either say, I strongly agree, I think that BedZ is an excellent example of sustainable brownfield redevelopment, or I strongly disagree. I do not think that BedZ is an excellent example of sustainable brownfield redevelopment. Firstly, secondly, furthermore. So there's your 3 well-elaborated reasons that back up why you think what you think. However, here's your 2 well-elaborated reasons that recognise the opposite, and then a short conclusion. Pause the video here a minute and give it a go. It's an 8 marker. So I would suggest if you're writing more than a page in your book, you're probably waffling. Give it a go. Okay, so let's walk you through a model answer, and what I'd like you to do, if you have a red pen, or any colour pen to be honest, is look at your answer, mark it out of 8 for the content, and out of 3 for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So give yourself a total mark out of 11. Oh, hold on. Hello? Are you alright? Bev should be in charge of this, really. Yeah. Okay, lovely. Yeah, she should have all of that info. Alright, thanks, bye. Sorry about that. Okay, feel free to refer back to other slides as well for this answer, but what I'd like you to do is get a different coloured pen of some sort, and as I go through my model answer, I'm going to point out why it's a model answer. I'd like you to then use that answer to either amend or change yours to make it full marks. So let's break it down. There's my introductory sentence, okay, I strongly agree or disagree. Alright, now I'm going to go for agree. Okay, so I strongly agree. I think it is an excellent example of brownfield redevelopment. Firstly, the solar passive gain glass used in the windows helps to insulate the homes during the winter using the sun's energy. I've mentioned how it works here, so that would pick me up a mark. This would mean, now I'm elaborating, residents do not need to turn on their heating as much, another mark, reducing the burning of fossil fuels, another mark, and helping reduce climate change. Now, this is an 8 marker. 8 markers are marked in bands. To get into the top band, which is band 4, you need to refer to wider concepts. So if you can refer to the water cycle, nutrient cycle, or in this case climate change, that's what they want to see. This makes it environmentally sustainable. Tick, I've covered one aspect of sustainability. Secondly, so I've got nice little connectives, my answer is flowing nicely. The on-site community centre creates a meeting place for all residents. That's just a statement, it doesn't pick me up a mark yet. This means, now I'm elaborating. So now I'm going to start getting marks. The people living there all get to know each other better, strengthening the community feel, tick, and improving quality of life. Good key term, tick. This means it's socially sustainable. I'm shoving it in the examiner's face that I understand the concept of sustainability. Environmental, social, and shock, my third point, is focusing on economic sustainability. Furthermore, Nice little connective, my answer's flowing nicely. The carpooling scheme would encourage people to car share to jobs in the CBD. It's just a statement, no mark yet. This would mean, so now I'm elaborating and I'm going to start picking up marks. Instead of driving themselves every day, up to 4 people could share one car, cutting people's petrol bills by 3/4. This would mean they have more disposable income, nice key term, tick, improving their standard of living, tick. This means it's economically sustainable. So there's my 3 reasons why I think it is sustainable. However, I do recognise, whilst the original plan for a large proportion of the apartments to be affordable housing for low-income families in the area, these have since been sold for much higher prices. Now this point, to be fair, I forgot to mention this before, people bought up the affordable housing at the affordable housing price, then a few years later sold it for massive profits. So the whole concept of some of it being affordable pretty much didn't exist anymore. This would mean that a group of people may be priced out of the housing market in the area and forced to leave to find cheaper housing, making the project less economically and socially sustainable. So that example of a point, you might not have had that as a point. You might have gone for some of the issues off the slide that we looked at, but as long as your reason is elaborated, you're all good. I've also gone for a second opposite point just to be sure. In addition, the solar passive gain glass wasn't as efficient as first thought. Nice higher level punctuation, semicolon. It left homes too warm in the summer and not warm enough in the winter. So that's a statement right now. And then I'm elaborating why it means it's not sustainable. People therefore were using their central heating systems in the winter, which used fossil fuels, tick, brackets, nice higher level punctuation again, which creates greenhouse gases, adding to climate change. So I've got my 3 well elaborated reasons why I think it is sustainable. I'm recognising the opposite, and then my short sweet conclusion summarises and reinforces my point of view. In conclusion, the project addresses all 3 aspects of sustainability quite well, social, environmental and economic, despite some shortcomings. Therefore, I strongly believe it is sustainable overall. Okay, so each sentence starts with a statement that sets up the elaboration I'm about to give, which is where I pick up the marks. I've used lots of key terms, I've used higher level punctuation, I've used paragraphing, I've used nice connectives, so my answer is structured nicely and flows nicely. That's important to get into the higher band of marking as well. So this would be 8 out of 8 for content and 3 out of 3 for spelling, punctuation and grammar. Refer to your answer. Add or change anything that needs to be added or changed, now having seen this, to make yours 8 out of 8 and 3 out of 3 as well. And that brings us to the end of lesson 7. Quite a heavy lesson, quite a lot of content there. So if you have any questions or queries, or you'd like to send a photo of your exam answer to my email and I can mark it for you to be sure that you've marked it appropriately, then feel free to email me at gleasona@hubecumry.net and I will get right back to you. My emails are open all day, every day.